What's up, guys? Specstar here today with my Week 7 battle for Mega Beedrill. This time going up against my man Hiker Toad, and he's got a team consisting of Mega DNC, Thunderous, Buzzwole, Volcanion, Klefki, and Hoopa Confined. And it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. Definitely one of the more ones in my season, particularly since the opponent I'm facing I have long argued to be on the higher end of the top 5 of players, but you know what, I like the challenge. And yes, this video is very late, and for one, I recorded it earlier and the audio didn't record, and another reason why it's already hard to get the motivation, my friends, you will see. So I'll switch over here to my team. I've got a Mega Alakazam here running Substitute, which can help me a little bit with things like Klefki and punish a bit on switches. It allows me to do something like Trace Prankster and Substitute as he wants to go for Thunder Wave. Things like that. Basic moveset. Gleam hits Zygarde, which I actually put a lot of thought into, and then it didn't wind up coming. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Well, soon. I got Heatran here, running a pretty speedy Substitute Stealth Rock set, and running a Substitute set with Rocks is just kind of my way to set up freely on DNC. I don't want to have to run through. Even if it would have to be an aggressive switching to bring DNC in on Heatran, I don't want to have to take that chance. I'd rather just sub up, and if he sees Substitute, he's very likely to think it's not Rocks, and then potentially draw the conclusion of Magma Storm, as that's more so what sub does, and think of a more offensive set. Next up here, I've got my Tangrowth, and this is the Zygarde answer, because the way my team is, I was pretty damn sure he was going to bring a specially defensive, sub-protect, toxic arrows Zygarde, and this was kind of my answer to it. This set allows me to definitely break the thing's subs, which was existential. Running max special attack and HP with a Miracle Seed to boost the power of grass moves. Grass moves hit his team pretty well, but the main reason I'm running 2 grass moves, which is a little bit weird, is because 1, I didn't want to risk Sleep Talk being too passive and not clicking a move with power. 2, Grass Knot has a lot of PP, and he could potentially PP stall me with Sub Protect if I did just go for a Giga Drains, and I didn't want to let that happen. Again, this thing was just my entire answer to that kind of a Zygarde set. Wasn't much else I could have brought for it, really. And next up here, I got Gastron. Enough bulk to make it a definite answer to DNC, even with Rocks up, and then the rest I just put in Fence, because DNC was pretty much the only thing it wanted to have special defense investment for. Next up here, I've got my Durant, and running a bit of a weird set, Adamant without full attack. Instead, I went for a lot of HP because I wanted this thing to be an answer to Buzzwole, and I didn't have that great answers to Buzzwole. I mean, I had Garbodor, but Garbodor would get nuked pretty easy by Earthquake if it had Earthquake. And I got Aerial Ace and then 2 Bug Stabs. Didn't really have much of a need for the Steel one. And Stomping Tantrum, which kind of allowed me to hit a few things such as the Volcanion, which was a big one. And there were other things I wanted to be able to hit with it. And lastly here, I've got my Garbodor running specially defensive with Substitute and Spikes, and the reason is that, again, DNC, if it comes in and I sub up, I can at least get the damage off with Gunk Shot pretty good. I don't think it necessarily wants to stay in that situation, so I don't risk having to make the decision between clicking my hazard or thinking about DNC coming in. I wanted to take as much of that out as I could, so back to the matchup here. Now, leading off, he leads off with Buzzwole. I wanted to lead off with Garbodor. Garbodor, good in a lot of situations. Not so good versus Hoopa, but Versus Klefki, it would have been a good lead that I would have been happy with. Would have been good with Buzzwole, Dancy, Volcanion, alright, but not ideal. So here I'm just going to try to go for my spikes. He actually shows the taunt though, which was good prep for him, so I'm going to be forced to switch out and go into my Durant. He goes for Bulk Up. I just go for my Aerial Ace straight away, get good damage off on him, barely survive the superpower myself. I'm going to switch back into Garbodor here, and that's because he should know I'm locked into Aerial Ace, and knowing I'm locked into Aerial Ace would create a potentially free switch in. Klefki is mostly what I was thinking about by going into Garbodor. If he went into Diancie, I was okay with that too, because Gastrodon's always a free switch in on that, and I don't really lose too much momentum. So I pulled the double in my Garbodor here, and then I'm going to switch right into my Gastrodon. Well, not the double, but the anticipatory switch, I guess. I go for my Scald here, and he actually shows that the Volcanion is Air Balloon, which is very interesting. I was actually more so thinking about Power Herb when I was prepping for this game. And he goes for Sunny Days. I actually just go for Ice Beam to break his balloon. I looked it up. I had to look it up in the middle of the game. If he did go for Substitute, the balloon still would have broken from the Ice Beam, even if the sub didn't break. So I went for that, trying to break the thing sub. He actually shows a Sunny Day here, though, which was really interesting. Very cool prep on his end, and very, very tricky position for me here. I gotta do something I don't want to, because I don't have a great switch on this thing now, with it obviously trying to threaten that it's Solar Beam. So I think that for its moves, potentially it would most likely want to go for a Fire move, predicting a switch, or Solar Beam, one of the two. So I think that my best play here is actually just to go into my Heatran. But he here, as you see, is going to go balls to the wall and make a great Earth Power play and take my Heatran, definitely putting me on the back foot early here. Now I'm in a tricky position. You might be wondering why I went into Garbodor in this position, and that is because when Durant died, if I went to Tangrowth, it died. If I went to Gastrodon, died. So I had to bring in Garbodor, which would take an Earth Power for sure, and be able to put this thing in range of Alakazam, which is what I needed. So he goes for the Flamethrower here, and I just go for my Gunk Shot. I poison it, but I just needed the damage off to put it in range of Psychic. That was the most important thing. Now that I got the Gunk Shot off, I'm just going to sack off Durant, because Durant died to Rocks and Garbodor didn't. So now I bring in my Zam here, because I don't really have too much for options. He goes into Klefki here. I just go for Psychic very safely. And I'm going to switch out here into my Garbodor. He goes for Thunder Wave. That's fine with me. My play here is to try to get up a Spike. So he goes into Diancie, still baby form, so it's not going to deflect this. And I'm going to go into my Gastrodon. No longer does Hidden Power exist, so this thing can't really do any damn thing at all for Gastrodon. He goes into Volcanion here. I'm actually just going to click Ice Beam, which is fine for me. If he clicked Volcanion, I couldn't risk Scald because I would have given it Water Absorb, and I didn't want to click Earth Power because he could have potentially went into Buzzwole there, which would have survived an Earth Power, or he could have went into Thundurus. So I'm just going to go for the Ice Beam there. He goes for Earth Power, and I'm just going to recover up and let the thing go down to Toxic. He goes on a Thundurus here, and actually, I was in my mind, I knew that there's a very high chance of this thing having Grass Knot. But if he did go for a Nasty Plot here, and I didn't click Ice Beam, then the thing could have potentially just won the game, because it would have been out of range of an Alakazam Psychic. So I just had to kind of take this potential Grass Knot on the chin and go for an Ice Beam to make sure I get this thing in range of Alakazam. Always here I'm just playing with the intent of trying to build the win con in my Alakazam. And here he goes for Focus Blast. I thought it's possible he might predict the Tangrowth to come in, which is why I clicked Recover here. And now that, because he has to think about this thing being Assault Vest, in which case it would definitely be a switch in on a Grass Knot for free. And now that I'm at this health, I don't have to worry about it plotting anymore because it's now slower. Or it's now, well, it is slower, but it's also in range of my Alakazam. I just go to my Garbodor here because he's in range of Life Orb and Aftermath, and Grass Knot is a physical move, so, well, not a physical move, it's a contact move, I mean, definitely not a physical move. It's one of the few special moves that is contact, so it will trip my Aftermath and take the Thundurus down with it. So here he goes Hoopa, and I go Alakazam, and my play here is just to actually pull the switch into my Tangrowth. I'll get more information on what the Hoopa's doing. He switching out, he has to scout to see if I'm faster than Scarf Hoopa, which it certainly could be, and he has to scout assuming it is Scarf. But I also have to be careful of the thing potentially being something like, what is it, Cassid Berry that deals with Ghost, or even a Vest set could potentially take a hit. So I have to go to my Tangrowth here just to kind of scout it and play it safe, since Sam is kind of my end-all be-all at this point. He gives in a Klefki. I'm actually just going to go for my Giga Drain because I'm trying to put Klefki in range of my Shadow Ball, and that's just my ultimate win con there with Zam, so I'll definitely try to take my chance to get Klefki in range. Diancie comes in and dies, which is pretty nice. Buzzwole comes into my plays just to click the Grass Knot. I can't really switch in at all, so that's what I do. And since I am offensive, and since Buzzwole is heavy as fuck because it's lifting weights, my Tangrowth is able to take the thing out. He brings in Klefki, and first I'm going to go for my Giga Drain to kind of scout and see if he's doing anything that would stop Gastron from coming in. As he sets up spikes, I realize it's kind of now or never for trying to bring my Gastron up to health, which would prevent Hoopa from being able to scarf or sweep my team with Scarf Shadow Ball, which is what I have in mind here. I'm going to recover up, and he has a light screen, so especially considering it doesn't look like the thing can do anything to my Gastron aside from probably Play Rough, which I would think the last move would be, I'm just going to click Ice Beam because I want to stall out that screen so Hoopa can't potentially sub up on Gastrodon or anything free like that. He does switch into the Hoopa here as I go for my Ice Beam, and I'm just going to leave my Gastrodon in here and kind of attack the thing to kind of put some pressure on so I can get that free setup, although it's still pretty free. Now I bring in my Alakazam, since with Energy Ball, if he is not Scarf, then I just sub up one turn, stall out the light screen, and then kill it. If he is Scarf, then Energy Ball doesn't kill me, so I'm just going to sub up here. He brings in the Klefki as I get my sub here, and I'm going to go for my Shadow Ball here. I'm going to trace his Prankster, which in my mind at this point isn't that big of a deal, but little did I know, I'm going to go for another Shadow Ball. And here he brings in Hoopa, and are you prepared to watch someone after playing a nearly flawless game do the most stupid thing? Are you ready? He brings in the Hoopa, and I'm gonna sub. And the reason is because if he was Scarf with a little bit of with some HP, then he could potentially survive a Shadow Ball with the screen up. And if he was Scarf, I would have to slow sub until the screen expired, and then I'd be able to kill it. And if he was actually slower than me, then in my mind, I would have just clicked sub a bunch of times, and on the turn screen expired, I would have been able to click my Shadow Ball. There's my laptop crashing again. Great timing. But yep, here I'm going to forget that I traced Prankster, even though I literally Mega Evolved with the Klefki already out, and forget that I have Prankster, and I'm just going to sub first, without that meaning that my Shadow Ball is going to go first. And yeah, that is what it looks like to play a near flawless 30 turns and then throw the whole game away with one stupid play. And Hiker is going to pick up his win here, and GG to my man there. As much as I did not play very well, he did play very well, so he definitely deserved to pick up the W there. And yeah, that is all. I want to thank you guys for watching and joining in my misery. Have yourselves